We are ready to rock. Apologies for the quick delay. It does black out my screen when I do this, so I needed to make sure we are good to go. Let's rock. All right, vitality, the science behind the key constraint. We have been doing some phenomenal work in the innovations department at Vitality Blueprint. It's my freaking heart and soul these days. There's nothing I think about more than vitality and all the ways in which we're going to change the world of blood work. And a lot of that stuff is coming to life. The last couple of years we've been at this thing, we've made tremendous progress, and there's so much more coming down the pipe. And most recently, during Black Friday week and Thanksgiving week, during this last couple of weeks, we released a new feature called Key Constraint that I am super, super, super proud of. And that's what you're going to learn about here today. It's not going to be a massively in-depth physiology, biochemistry lesson, although if you know me, you know we'll get into some of that because I won't be able to help myself. But it's more about how you can use blood work easily and very, very, very effectively. So I like to kick presentations off usually with a what's in it for me. Because when I show up to a presentation, I kind of want to know what I'm in for right away. And then I can make my decisions on what's going to happen after that. What's in it for you here? We're going to go over theory of constraint. We're going to go over why it's really the magic unlock in blood work. And I'm going to basically give you what's taken me decades of my career and give it to you in a completely automated fashion. It's one of the things I am most proud of that I've ever created, most proud of to ever discuss and to deliver to you guys. And I know by the end of this presentation, but Vitality was already completely different than any other blood work platform out there. We are not the best known, but we are the best. There is absolutely no denying that in terms of interpretation and protocol design, science behind the recommendations, the depth of the library, the ongoing additions to the encyclopedia. Nobody freaking touches us. But one hole you could say that was in our game currently at the moment is it still can be a little bit scattered. So somebody would say, hear me on a podcast and hear me break something down all the way down to the root causal level. And then our platform, even though it had all of the science behind it, sometimes it wasn't always the easiest to navigate and certainly wasn't the easiest to simplify to one single root cause lever. But that science is now unlocked, and that's what you're in. That's what you're getting here today. You're getting something fantastic that does not exist anywhere else. What's our problem? Well, lab results definitely overwhelm even the seasoned professionals. I'm in talks with professional teams, dietitians, doctors, functional medicine practitioners, chiropractors, you name it, any type of profession that kind of touches the world of blood work. It's really overwhelming. And when you look at just a pure data sheet like this, like, of course, I'm used to this because it's like reading a music book for anybody who's played piano for 30 years. I'm very used to this. But the average person, amylase, C-peptide, C-reactive protein, and then looking at how they have different nanograms per milliliter, units per liter, milligrams per liter. Some of them are in percentages, some of them are in grams per deciliter. It's like, what are these units? What are these markers? And people don't think about the processing techniques. How was this actually processed? Is it calculated? Is it direct? What type of assay? There is an enormous amount of knowledge that is required to be able to look at something like a data sheet like this and understand it. And it overwhelms even the seasoned of professionals, and even the ones it doesn't overwhelm, it's still very time expensive. If you know what's up with all of this stuff, it's still very time expensive. So in that sense, it can become overwhelming. If you want to work with 5 clients with blood work, 10 clients with blood work, 15, 20, maybe you're operating teams or corporations where you're talking 50s or in the hundreds or thousands. This is wildly, it's wildly overwhelming for anybody that gets into it, and efficiency becomes a necessity. And problem number two is data alone doesn't guarantee progress. Um, this is something where, like, back in, say, like 5, 8, 10 years ago, no one was really doing what I was doing at all. Like, it wasn't even heard of. I was kind of like the weird hippie guy from Canada. It's like, send that guy your stool analysis and he'll know what to do. That guy looks at blood, urine, saliva, stool. He looks at your wearable data. He looks at questionnaires. He does all this kind of stuff. That was completely unheard of when I started doing that. And now, actually, a lot of companies do it. There's a lot of Me Too's out there that say, we know this, we know the optimal range of that, we've got this database for this. And what's happening is this massive realization from everybody, the professionals, but also the clients and customers as well, that data alone does not guarantee progress. only good data and actionable data guarantees progress. But people are getting buried in wearables and in so many metrics. And then it ends up leading to something that we here at Vitality called the now what moment. That now what moment you see right there is like that woman, she looks like she's happy to get her results back. But then also, if you zoom in, it's like, okay, now what? What do I do? I've been given seven wearable metrics, 100 blood biomarkers, and I do not know how to contextualize this. I don't know how it connects to my goal. I don't know how it connects to preventative health, the future of my goal. I don't know absolutely anything about this data and what's been more researched and what hasn't. That now what moment is everywhere right now. High performers need clear science-based actions. They just do. You need to give them very simplified things and let them go do their work. You could say that about anybody, but you definitely need to say that about high performers because they're looking to break plateaus. They're looking to actually change their subjective experience of life. Like if you're just trying to change a number on a spreadsheet, I'm probably not the guy for you. But if you're looking to increase your energy, increase your recovery, increase your speed, increase your cognition, that's where I come in. I'm not somebody who takes very unhealthy people to being healthy. I'm someone who takes healthy people and make them the best version of themselves. That's when you need very clear science-based actions because you're no longer just doing the simple basic stuff. You need actually to look at that next level and get a lot of signal from the noise. So I love this graphic here, depicting noise versus signal. A lot of people are in the world of mystery. Okay. Noise represents like the amount of data that's coming your way. And the signal represents if it's actually saying anything to you, if there's a clear narrative and a clear message within it. But with not a lot of noise and not a lot of signal, you end up in the world of mystery. This is someone who's kind of like they're not doing a lot of blood work, they're not doing a lot of wearables, they're not this person might not even have any form of training program that they follow. They go to the gym and just do what they feel like. Like that person, they just can't make decisions, really. They can't make data-driven decisions, at least I should say, because they're in a complete world of mystery. After that, you get into obscurity, which is a lot of noise without a lot of signal. Now, that's where the now what moment kind of comes into play when you've got like all these things that like you think should be important, but you don't know how to contextualize them. You got 100 biomarkers ready to go, and all of your data, and all of your food logs, and all of your medications that you're on, and the supplement protocol that you're on. You've got all of this noise but not a narrative, not a signal, nothing strong actually standing out within it. Distraction is actually just as bad as obscurity, believe it or not. You know, you'd think that if you got a lot of noise and a lot of signal, that it would lead to something good. Let me tell you, it doesn't. Okay. And that's actually the biggest, I would say one of the biggest things that people come to me and specifically Vitality for is make sense of all of this. Okay. Another blood work platform or another practitioner or another somebody gave me 100 biomarkers and they're telling me that they're all important. No, they're not. And the user already knows this. It's like I got 100 biomarkers and it's like scattered, like some of these are green, some of these are yellow, some of these are red, some of these are deep red, some of these are whatever they are. And they're giving somebody so many biomarkers and acting as if they're all important, and they're not. That is a massive distraction. So somebody in the world of way too much noise and way too much signal, they're gonna get the same results as the total mystery guy because both of them are clueless. They do not know what's important. They don't know what to do. Where you want to be is in the world of clarity. Okay, you want to be able to contextualize all of the data, so that's less noise. Despite 100 plus biomarkers coming in, they're contextualized into a narrative for you, which drives massive signal, gives you massive clarity. And when you have a ton of clarity and you've reduced noise and you've increased the signal, you've done what I've built my entire career on. You have worked with the theory of constraints. You've identified the bottleneck. That is the key to unlocking somebody's potential. It's never 100 things. It's usually one to three, and lots of times it can just be one. honestly. And to drive proper behavior change, you don't want to ask someone to do 10 things or 15 or 20. You don't want to do that. You especially can't do that if you don't contextualize it into a narrative that's important to their goal or contextualize it into a narrative that's important to the systems of their body. And that's what the theory of constraints is really all about. And this is an example that I've used a lot in the past. But you need to think about the theory of constraints a lot like a CEO would look at a business. A business will only ever scale to the degree that it is constrained. So, an excellent CEO will look down at the different departments of his or her business and be able to identify where the constraint in business growth is. Is there a constraint in sales? Is there a constraint in company culture? Is there a constraint in product quality? Is there a constraint in marketing? You're going to be able to, or the CEO is going to be able to look at these different departments, identify the constraint, and remove it so that the business can grow and scale to the next level. Physiology operates the exact same way. If a business is continuing to do the wrong thing harder, they're not going to grow more. They are just going to be spinning their tires in the mud, likely burning through their budget and not making disciplined, data-driven decisions about how the business is going to grow. Physiology is the exact same freaking thing. Okay, if you just work out harder or eat less or buy more supplements in a random shotgun approach, that doesn't net you more results. It nets you more effort, but it doesn't net you more results. And that's like a huge realization and paradigm shift in the way you need to look at blood work and look at physiology is that effort doesn't equal results. It's only the person who is able to allocate that effort into the most intelligent area of their physiology who's going to get results. You get two guys, same amount of effort. One is applied to the theory of constraint, and one is applied to what he wants to do. Only one guy is going to get better, quicker, faster results. And that's the guy who is after the theory of constraints. And it can unlock so many things. Like a good example of this was a podcast episode I just did recently on Vitality Unlocked on micronutrient status, looking at two females with zinc deficiencies. Well, repleting zinc in one female increased her metabolic rate by 992 calories per day. Right? That's not a typo. Okay. Across a 4 month span, repleting zinc status in this female increased her metabolic rate by 992 calories per day. Zinc is intimately linked with the thyroid. So when you have very low zinc status, then your thyroid hormone output is going to be poor and inefficient. If your thyroid hormone output is poor and inefficient, that directly affects your resting metabolic rate. Now that your resting metabolic rate is directly affected, well, now you're going to be burning a significantly less amount of calories per day. So this girl, imagine if she just tried to work harder for fat loss. Yeah, you're not going to outwork a 900 plus deficit in resting metabolic rate. It's not going to happen. Okay, that bottleneck right here, you're trapped. I'm sorry. You do not get to pass go. You do not get $200. You are stuck until you do a proper analysis of your physiology, you identify the constraint and remove it. And this would be absolutely life-changing for this woman, life-changing. At 900 calories more per day, she can easily fit in two large meals now per day and not gain any more fat at all. Two way more large meals to have much more satiation, much more micronutrient intake, much more macronutrient intake, actually be giving her body the essential nutrients for not just performance, but health and longevity and cognition, attention span. She's probably awake in the night because her body is so just malnourished due to this single, and I want to say single mineral status. That is the effective identification of a constraint and a removal, and what volume of effect that can take place. That's just a single example from the literature. And guys, you guys know there's thousands of these. And I'll give you a single example from a Vitality user, Jordan Panthen, okay? Young professional boxer, literally doubling his testosterone because we were able to identify the constraint and remove it so that his recovery capacity could go to the next level. This is his actual data right here. And this is testosterone going from 358 to 656, and his free testosterone 5.2 to 12.7. Like, I want to say a couple of things here. Number one, this is clinically low. This free testosterone at a 5.2, like we're not talking suboptimal for performance. We're not talking suboptimal for a world-class boxer. We're talking clinically low. So this is a clinically low reading. And this was a 6-month protocol. So going from 5.2 to 12.7, more than double. Total testosterone, 358 to 656. Something that's important to learn, you guys, is there's these things called technical variation and biological variation. Technical variation refers to the difference in a before and after lab result that can purely be due to the equipment processing. So I could get my total testosterone done today, and I could get my total testosterone done in an hour or even a half an hour, and the results can be different. Now, that's technical variation because the machine itself has a variability. Okay. Then there's a thing called biological variation, which I'm sure you can assume the machine, the human machine itself, will have variability. Now, there's known percentages of change for technical variation and biological variation. These exceed technical and biological variations. So this is not a, oh, maybe that's noise. This is not noise. This is signal. This is signal on both total and free testosterone. They increase significantly. And this is a kid who's healthy in his young 20s, in his early 20s. So we're not just getting past technical and biological variation and creating a meaningful result. We're creating a meaningful result in a population that is difficult to create a meaningful result in because he's already young, active, and healthy, let alone, identifying a lot of that key constraint, which we're going to get into, being from rooted in inflammation. C-reactive protein having an 8x difference between the two, which is absolutely fantastic. Key constraint engine. So when we're thinking about how to simplify blood work, how to have one or two levers, you need to look at the system as a whole, working in systems biology, and you need to have an engine that is able to identify that constraint so that you can do one recommendation for a very, very, very high ROI constraint instead of do 10 recommendations with no narrative for who knows really what. Okay. That's that kind of lots of noise, lots of signal, but in the world of distraction, we don't want any of that. So what we've created at Vitality here is the key constraint engine. This is an engine that is data-driven algorithm that isolates your biggest physiological limiter. And I'm going to get into a demo in a moment here, but you get a little bit of insight as to how it's going to look on the dashboard here. But you've got an algorithm that isolates your biggest physiological limiter. This is an algorithm trained by me with tons of data to identify a true root cause in the snap of a finger when you upload blood work. Number two, it transforms complex biomarkers into focused priorities. So you're going to be able to see when you're applying protocol recommendations for yourself or for a client, which ones are key constraint focused and which ones aren't. So you're essentially you're removing the idea that biomarkers live on islands. We know that the body operates as one system. It operates as one unit. Biomarkers, they shouldn't live on islands. So treating them separately is not the best move for maximum ROI. And it also provides narrative for things that don't otherwise sound like they mean anything. Like to the average person, they don't know that albumin, blood urea nitrogen, creatinine, serum osmolarity. They don't know that these things can just be called hydration, right? You're turning a complex set of biomarkers into something that's relatable and actually focused with high ROI. And lastly, for a key constraint engine, besides the fact that it needs to do a root cause, it needs to make everything simple, it needs to be grounded in very, very, very evidence-based research and performance physiology. And as you guys know, I've been in the performance game a long time. Some of you in the chat section at the beginning, I recognize a lot of the names there, but some of you might be new here. I've been around the block, okay? Super Bowl champions, Masters winners, UFC title holders, Marvel superheroes. I've worked with people in Parliament and royalty, Olympians, you name it. I've been around the block. So in the world of performance, I know what the heck I'm doing in terms of in the field, in the trenches work. However, I am also a published scientist, not just an Instagram scientist. I have co-authored many papers that have been published in respected journals and actually have gotten an award on one of those papers, having the top viewed article in experimental physiology. So I've been in the game from a getting results perspective, but a how to actually look at science, how to read science, how to interpret quality data versus non-quality, how to look at processing techniques, how to make this thing the best blood work machine that's ever been built, and how to make the best key constraint engine, key constraint being the key thing that is constraining within the theory of constraints, how to make that the best thing that's ever been built in the world of blood work. And the process is simple. It's very simple. Despite all of the science that we can, and we can get into any of that, my goal is almost to not do that. It is a goal of mine to actually have someone go through a full blood work process and not even need to see their biomarkers, not even need to know what the biomarkers are. Because you're talking in systems, you're talking in constraints, you're talking in solutions. So the process is simple. You have your blood work, you run it through the Vitality key constraint engine that you cannot get anywhere else. Our algorithm identifies and weights constraints based on a lot of things, right? What medications are you on? What goals did you pick? What does your blood work look like? How old are you? What is your gender? All of these things, based on your intake, but also based on your blood, are working towards identifying a weighted constraint model. What is maximally holding this person back, utilizing the theory of constraints across their physiology? Well, it's identified here as example, constraint A is identified as the largest weight, which leads to a root cause protocol, which then allows you to transform 10 recommendations into one. That's like the real big, massive takeaway here is that, and I want this image to represent what it represents here. This would represent a recipe book approach to biomarkers. This biomarker is high, so take this supplement. This biomarker is low, so take that supplement. And you just get served 100 biomarkers, some yellow, some red, and you just sort of have to decide what the heck you're going to do. But you're doing 10 strategies for 10 biomarkers here, when really you could do one strategy for 10 biomarkers. That's always how it works, you guys. That's like always how it works. Don't do 10 strategies for 10 biomarkers. You can do one strategy for 10 biomarkers because that's how this thing works. So you guys have seen organizational charts, right? When you've got like a CEO or whatever, and then the CEO has two managers, and those two managers have four team leaders. Those four team leaders have eight employees. Like, those organizational maps build out. That's how blood work really works. So you imagine you have an inflammation problem. Well, that inflammation problem is going to lead to a blood sugar problem, and it's going to lead to a hormone problem. And then if you have blood sugar problems and hormone problems, then you're going to have energy issues, you're going to have thyroid issues, you're going to have immune issues, you're going to have protein issues. So that is that's systems physiology. Everything is connected to everything, and there's always a head of the snake. And this system cuts off the head of the snake and allows you to focus on that one head of the snake protocol instead of getting lost in the weeds, the high noise, high signal area where everything seems important when it's really not. So what we're looking at, we are taking in all of the inputs. So your nutrition, training, stress, your mindset, all of these things that you have in your input, in your questionnaire, and your symptoms, and all of these things. We're looking at your blood work. We're applying systems biology, and then we're really unlocking performance to the next level. Let's go do a demo. So I want to show you guys what this thing's really about. We'll stop share here. All right, all right, all right. See if we can get this one reactivated here. Oh, there we go. All right. So looking at the demo of this, I'm going to be real quick with it here. These people are already loaded in. So the whole input process has been completed. We'll kick this thing off with Walter. You guys can see here, this is our dashboard, and this is like a big goal, right? Like you can just look purely at the key constraint right here. So this, Walter, his blood work, again, his blood work, his questionnaire, all that stuff's been input. If you guys want to go review walkthroughs, platform walkthroughs and stuff like that, we have all of that in the Circle community that we've created here. So I didn't want to do any of the that type of administrative stuff. But you can see here, his key constraint was cardiometabolic efficiency in inefficiency. So after all of his blood analysis and questionnaire and everything's been done, he's got one key constraint. And you can click right on this key constraint and it tells you everything you need to know. Like, what is cardiometabolic inefficiency? So what is the key constraint that was identified? You get your explanation here. How does cardiometabolic inefficiency impact my physiology? You get that explanation as well. How does cardiometabolic inefficiency impact performance goal? Now, this is an important thing too here. So you've got your key constraint, but then we also interpret based on somebody's goals. So not just blanket, we base it on someone's goal. So this person here, Walter, he actually chose cognitive performance for his goal that he wanted to accomplish at Vitality. So this key constraint, it's not just looking at systems biology and what is the massive bottleneck holding him back, but it's also actually discussing exactly how it affects his unique performance goal. Because people ultimately, I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of coaches on this call, although it's not just for coaches, but like people come to me and this is going to sound funny when I say it, but they come to me to achieve their goal, not my goal. Us coaches, we can sometimes get lost in that. Whereas like, no, you need to do this. You need to do this thing over here. You're supposed to get stronger. You're supposed to do hypertrophy. No, you're supposed to do endurance. Like we have our own ideologies, our own philosophies, our own ways in which we approach things. And that can happen in the world of blood. Because if someone says, hey, I am here to do this, and then I find something else in the blood, like you still they're paying me to do this thing over here and not just what I feel is important over here. So a perfect combination of all things here is we know systems biology actually affects everything. Everything is connected to everything. So we've got this cardiometabolic inefficiency. We explain what it is, how it affects physiology at the systemic level, but then also how it affects the person at their goal level. So you're getting their emotional buy-in, you're getting their commitment. They now understand and can contextualize blood work. And this is just I know I'm pausing a lot for contextualization and narratives, but I think that's so important because if I'm talking to a client, I am not going to, although I could, right? I can bring up HbA1c, LDL, cholesterol, non-HDL, venous pH, glucose, homocysteine. Right. The average person might get overwhelmed by that and maybe a little intellectually burnt out, especially if we dive in and like you can go through all the literature here and details. You can go as deep as you want into this thing. There is a ton of information on this platform. But a cool thing is I also don't need to tell them any of that. Also, you as a coach, you didn't even need to know any of that if you don't want to. Because if I want to deliver this information to a client, my whole narrative can just be this, right? What it is, how does it affect me at the systemic level? How does it affect your goal? And then also recommendations, what we can do about it. Not even a single biomarker is mentioned there, which is a tremendous feat because I'll show you this over here. We can look at it. This is their blood work part of the dashboard. But like, look at here. So if you want to actually look at their results, like it's tremendous. I'm probably making people seasick scrolling through that. But even when you bring it to table view, like guys, there is dozens and dozens of stuff. Tons. Like we're looking at the 100+ things all at once, but you also don't need to see any of that. Your key constraint is right here. You've got 5 biomarkers out of range relative to this key constraint, and 2 of them were normal but not optimal. But now we know exactly what it is, how it's affecting the goal, what narrative we're going to use, telling the client, and then also exactly what they're going to do about it. The recommendations are right there as well. So very, very, very cool stuff. I'll go on to another one here, just so you guys get a couple of different looks at this. Miranda here, her key constraint, very common for females. This will come up a lot, iron insufficiency. The data on iron insufficiency in females is large for a lot of reasons, for intake reasons, for blood loss reasons, for that's just something that's very common that blood work is like such a huge unlock for. Like increasing Miranda's iron, like you would get kind of the effect. Like remember that zinc study I told you about previously? When you increase if someone's iron, forget if they're female, if you increase anybody's iron that's currently low, The number one symptom of anemia, and specifically iron deficiency anemia, is fatigue. So when you are able to just introduce iron into this person's life, they are your best friend for the rest of your life. And you look like some genius who made this unbelievable program, but really they were just walking around constrained. And it took blood work to be able to identify the constraint, to know that they need iron, to give them the proper recommendations. But then this person has more energy, they're burning fat better, and you'll be able to connect it right to their stuff too. Because, like, yes, all of our narrative is here, but something I didn't say in the last one that I could. We also pick up the symptoms. And that's important for the narrative too. I know when I'm talking to a client, and I'm getting them like, wow, yes, I am suffering in that. Wow, that is right. Like you can say like, how you put this in your questionnaire? This is why. Like that whole connection process to where you're bridging blood work to their lived experience. That's you're getting a massive amount of belief and buy-in, and you're also just like, as a coach, I don't like to be nervous as a coach. I like to be confident as a coach. So when this comes through, and Miranda, she did say she has new brain fog, trouble concentrating. She has restless legs at night. This is low iron. This is low iron all day. Okay. So you're able to actually connect that. She already filled that out, and that becomes a beautiful part of this entire narrative flow. We get our recommendations, her key constraints identified, and instead of me spending hours looking at this thing trying to identify the root cause, or you spending hours, because even if we know what we're talking about, it's still very time expensive and energy expensive to identify the root cause. This thing does it in a second. You got it. Bam, done. Massive, massive time saver on your end, but also a massive time saver on their end, right? They're still doing the one thing instead of the million things. Nobody's confused. We know what we're after and we can track that. And that's another thing too, like tracking. I mean, and I could talk about this forever. I'm gonna have to watch the clock. I say we could do this thing forever. I mean, that's why we call these things performance cycles. And you're looking at cycle progress. It's never over. Like you're never done. Like I don't want to feel good anymore. I'm pretty solid. Or nah, this whole preventative health thing, I think I'm gonna get out of here for a while. Like that doesn't really happen. So we've got built-in mechanisms to actually track your historical data, look at trends over time, making sure you're doing the right thing and making the right decisions and adjusting changing courses if need be, if your key constraint just continues to come up. So there's a cyclical nature to this, just like there is in any form of training periodization. But new protocol setup. And it's important to point out here too. So like Miranda, her key constraints iron insufficiency. So we want to knock that out. But her goal was overall performance. So she's looking at overall, like Walter was just cognitive performance, I think he was. This Miranda, she chose overall performance, but she actually came back with low vitamin D. So this is an important call out too, because we want to have their key constraints, but we also don't want to ignore things that are important to them. Right? She came back with low vitamin D. So in the same way that like you don't want to treat biomarkers as if they live on their own islands because the system operates as one collective, you also don't want to identify one key constraint and then forget about markers that may be off, right? It's almost like there's an Einstein quote that I'm going to butcher here, so I shouldn't even say it, but it's something like you want to simplify something down, but not more simple than that. And that's really what this is all about. You want to give someone their key constraint, and then you also don't want to forget something that's also critically important to their goal. So they've got these key constraints here, and then the most critical biomarkers to follow if you are have the goal of overall performance is vitamin D, total testosterone, yes, total testosterone for females, C-reactive protein, hemoglobin, and IGF-1. So covering all the bases here. Um, what else could I show you here? Metrics, very important as well. I encourage everybody to start inputting metrics here because we got a lot of stuff and cool stuff coming down the pipe in terms of body comp, VO2, different wearable metrics, and how that's going to be integrated into your blood analysis, which is very, very, very cool. Protocol stuff, you're able to see which was a key biomarker. So that's an important call out. I'll maybe talk about that a little bit in the next and final example here. But you're able to see a key constraint, which is iron insufficiency. The key biomarker, I'll just say it, was the one that was relevant to her performance goal. And then she also had some other boosters here as well. So adding in a booster, she can add it in, or you can add it in as a coach. And for breath work, hydration, and ashwagandha, these were just to support other areas that were off in her blood analysis. And I can show you. I can show you a little bit about that. Let's go to who's our last guy? Curtis? See who's Curtis? Yeah. Oh, Curtis is a good example, actually. So Curtis, he didn't have a key constraint. So this is an important thing too. You don't want to have a key constraint for the sake of having a key constraint. Okay. You don't want to just to have a maximally objective and unbiased view of things. You don't want to just force things to fit a narrative because sometimes you're working with someone who's really healthy and they're not going to have a key constraint. So like the system is not built weekly, I guess I'm going to say. If someone has a key constraint, it means they earned it. You need to earn a key constraint in the book of Dan Garner. But if you're a healthy person or you otherwise don't have a major systemic constraint, then I don't want to slap one on you for the sake of a narrative. However, what is important to call out is that because you don't have a key constraint, you will still be recommended to work on the next highest ROI key markers. Okay, we're still maximizing ROI here and not just doing a plethora of random things that may or may not work. So even though this is a really good example, actually. So Curtis did not have a systemic constraint, a cluster associated to one physiological narrative, but he did have elevated C-reactive protein, so he's inflamed. He also has clinically low magnesium status. His vitamin D, so whoever got him on vitamin D, that's pretty high. 93 is you are in the unnecessary zone. So this is a recommendation where it's kind of cool. It's just as important to know what to take away rather than to what put in. The system's actually going to recommend that he gets rid of vitamin D at this point, which is what he should do. 7 more points, and he's in the toxic zone for that. Um, it's suboptimal testosterone, so not clinically low, but suboptimal, and is hemoglobin A1C, right? So this is a guy where it's like this is a good situation where he didn't have a key constraint, but he's not optimal. Like we actually have some inflammation and some blood sugar and magnesium stuff going on. And you know your physiology. Magnesium is going to help lower inflammation and improve blood sugar status at the same time, and testosterone. So like if this actually right here is like you fall into the magnesium sink, and we're actually going to improve system as a whole anyway. But great example to kind of show the mechanics here. His performance goal was muscle strength, so he has his own unique biomarkers to follow. One of them was critically wrong at C-reactive protein, which initiates or creates anabolic resistance, even in younger populations, let alone older populations. But let's actually just go to, I'll just show you guys on this protocol page here. So when you're going through this, oh, darn it. Actually, I'm going to show you on someone else. That's going to make more sense. All right, protocol page. Let's edit it. Bam. Okay, so when you're designing somebody's protocol, this whole process is way smoother and neater now as well. Way smoother and neater. So you've got your categories of relevance here. When you click key constraint, you now have the 4 biomarkers, and this is we're back to Miranda now. She had iron insufficiency, so she's got the 3 biomarkers rather, that are affected by her key constraint. So then I've already added them, right? Added and I could just take that off or add it back to her plan. It's super, super simple stuff. But you've got your key constraint, which only has the biomarkers for the key constraint. And if this is a client with like low adherence or they're really busy in season professional hockey player or something like that, I might shut off the protocol right here. Done. Done. If I give this person 3 things to do, but it's attacking their key constraint, I have done my freaking job. If I have removed their constraint, I have already done my job. I will lay my head on the pillow at night knowing I did my job. The amount of recommendations you give somebody does not equal the amount of service you're providing them. The amount of recommendations you give them does not equal the amount of results or value you're providing them. That's not gotta I just know how coaches think. We think like every week we need to like, maybe I'm not providing value if I don't make a tweak to the macros or the calories, or if I don't tell them to switch something or do something. No, confidence is the hallmark of a good coach. I might not change anything for 2 months. Might not do anything because if progress is happening, then progress is happening. So don't change stuff. And in the world of blood work, don't add stuff. You don't need to. You can if you want to, and it's not always a bad thing. But I'm just telling you that I've done this before. So if you see me as any type of person to look up to in blood work, understand on many occasions I have opened to the key constraint and I've given the person 2 to 5 things to do, and then that's a wrap. So you're allowed to call it a day right there. That is stage one of designing a protocol. Stage two is key biomarkers. So this reflects biomarkers that are really important and biomarkers that are reflective of your performance goal that weren't a part of your key constraint, but were out of range. So these are the things you don't want to forget. Okay, so for Miranda, for example, like vitamin D, very critical for injury risk. It's critical for hormones. It's critical for circadian rhythm, critical for women's bone density as well. It does a lot of important things, right? So we don't want to just forget about something when it's still very relevant. Or let's say a guy's key constraint was iron status as well, but then he came back with bottomed out testosterone. Like we wouldn't want to just not tell him that. We still want to report that to him. We still want to action because it's a key important thing for what he wants to do. So then you've got your key constraint and then you've got your key biomarkers. And then you have your performance goal. So these are the ones where your key biomarkers, they need to come out of range. They're really important and they need to come back out of range for us to work on those. Those are like your elite biomarkers. But then your performance goal ones, these are the ones where they may come back normal, but we can still work on them because they're your goal. You really want to focus on this thing and you want to optimize every part of it. And for her overall performance, like 2 biomarkers came back suboptimal. So you could see prioritizing healthy fats is a good one for her here. And then, of course, the vitamin D with vitamin D and sun exposure. That is the third layer. Out of range now is any and all things that were out of range. So this is now, so you've gone through your key constraint, you've gone through the highest ROI biomarkers, you've gone through the biomarkers that are relevant to your performance goal, and now you're just anything else that's out of range. So if you still maybe you want to work on cholesterol because your parents or whatever, you want to focus on other things. There's a lot of other things that you can do in the out of range if you're somebody who wants to add a lot more stuff to your protocol. And then add-ons is just everything. This is just looking at everything as a whole. But that's what I wanted to show you here, how easy this performance creation plan is and how it's really going in a hierarchy. Constraint, key, goal, range, add-on. Super easy to understand and super easy to actually just do 2 things or 15 things. It's really up to you or the adherence level of your client. Complete that. Boom. Okay. And I believe that's where I'll call it.